was not a myth, was not an accident! They've been here before, they will be here again! Society of the Ancients! Believe, they are real!
In 1995, small business owner Dave George was invited by his neighbour Aaron Elliott to a backyard barbecue. Conversation was mundane for a while, but the more beers they got down, the more abstract it became. Eventually though, talk turned to a book series that Aaron was reading that dealt with ancient unsolved mysteries. It was a book that was peddled in late night infomercials, but regardless, had garnered a cult following. After a long 2-hour discussion, and a brief foray into Aaron's duplex to find said mysterious book, Dave found himself enthralled with these ancient mysteries, specifically with their possible relationship to extraterrestrials. And thus, the snowball began to roll. Not long after, Dave became engrossed in research regarding the Ancients, an ancient advanced alien species who he believed were responsible for humanity's historical anomalies. Books, video, radio, he scoured every medium imaginable to uncover more, and in that very same year, founded the Society of the Ancients in the pursuit of their discovery. Through his research, he came across a quote from the former Apollo 14 astronaut Edgar Dean Mitchell, the 6th man to ever walk on the moon. I have been, over the years, very skeptical, like many others, about extraterrestrial existence, but in the last 10 years or so, I've come to realise that the evidence is building up to make this a valid and researchable question. These words had a significant impact on Mr. George, and years later, having constructed his secret society with hundreds of members spanning the entire globe, he would look back on them and think about the moment that it all began. The Society of the Ancients, founded by Dave George and currently chairmaned by Aaron Elliott, is not a cult. It is not an anti-government group, not a quackpot religious commune, nor a sci-fi reader's circle. The purpose of the society is to collect and share information that has led its members to a unique understanding about human history, and more so, its relationship to a gracious and technically advanced ancient alien race who have been in contact with us since the Stone Age. The forerunners to humanity's existence. The society is comprised of 510 lawyers, architects, teachers, business owners, artists, researchers, authors, videographers, and many more occupations. They are a society of intelligent and accomplished people with one unified goal: sifting through vast archives of knowledge, history, and discrepancies within the two to explain the unexplainable, to uncover the truth of those who came before us and how they influence humanity's advancement as a species. Now, allow me to break the fourth wall for a moment and add a little bit of context. So, who actually are the Society of the Ancients? Well, they were an integral part of Halo 3's marketing ARG, Iris. Bungie created the Society of the Ancients as a way to tie Halo's lore in with our real world and use the fiction of the Halo universe to explain things from our real world history that are deemed unexplainable. They were created to offer explanations for historical anomalies and conspiracies via the very thing that they're seeking to discover: the Ancients or the Foreigners. But speaking of these historical anomalies and conspiracies, let's go into a little bit more detail about them. In 2004, a professor of genetics by the name of Dr. Jonas Vollmann published his first novel, The Castaway Theory. Throughout his years of research into the human genome, Jonas began noticing discrepancies within humanity's genetic evolution and origins, and so he wrote the Castaway Theory to expose these unspoken anomalies and present alternate solutions to our origin as a species. However, in 2005, Jonas Vollmann mysteriously disappeared, only to reappear 2 years later in 2007, working on his second book, The Places the Earth Stands Still, which would expand upon his Castaway theory. Now, for some reason, the Castaway theory is impossible to get your hands on now. It's no longer in print, and mysteriously has next to no online presence outside of a few scanned pages that contain no significant detail about any of Volman's theories. It's almost as though someone doesn't want Volman's Castaway theory gaining any ground, and I have a hunch as to why. My assumption is that his Castaway theory proves that human DNA does not originate from Earth, thus making us castaways of a far-flung world and civilization. A civilization that sought to guide us throughout our evolution, influencing our history with foreign technology and philosophical concepts for a reason that's, well, beyond our current comprehension. A civilization of foreigners. But Jonas Volman's theory aligning perfectly with the Society of the Ancients' beliefs isn't the only coincidence here. It might blow your mind to know that Jonas Volman and Dave George grew up together. Yeah, so make of that one what you will. Returning to the Society, both on their website and in brief interviews, they touch on the anomalies throughout history that fuel their beliefs. However, they boldly state that the primary reason for their beliefs is Occam's razor, the idea that the simplest solution is often the best solution. Throughout its years of research, the Society has asked itself what is simpler to explain: that ancient humans made extreme leads in technology and social advancement for no reason whatsoever, or that there was a reason, a hand that guided the swift change. Keep that in mind. A mining operation into a limestone reserve revealed this: a human handprint found baked into the rock itself, which, following carbon dating, was confirmed to be over 110 million years old. It's currently agreed upon that humans only came into existence some 300,000 years ago. The numbers don't quite add up. The Society also cites Stonehenge as evidence for the ancients' influence. So, Stonehenge is a prehistoric stone structure that was believed to have been constructed in multiple stages from 3100 BC to 1600 BC. The structure is aligned towards the sunrise on the summer solstice and the sunset on the winter solstice. In and of itself, it is a marvel of mystery. Why was it built? To be a calendar? A burial site? A tool of astrological alignment? A conduit of death? Nobody is quite sure. But the greater mystery is how it was built. The first stones that were used in its construction could only be sourced 180 miles away, and each weighed 4 tons. No technology of this era was able to transport such stones so far, and no alternative explanations have ever been successfully reenacted. The same is the case with the larger stones as well. Although only originating 20 miles away, they are significantly larger and significantly harder to transport without modern means. The Society imply that their ancients, our foreigners, aided ancient humanity in the creation of Stonehenge to lay the seeds for their understanding of space. Perhaps this was their way of nudging us towards the stars and ensuring that we would one day reclaim all they left behind. But Stonehenge's relevance to the foreigners goes beyond the logical gaps in its creation. Its shape, specifically, bears a unique similarity with many other anomalies that the Society have noted. A round shape with counterpoints. A shape that seems to pop up in technology created far before its time, all throughout history. Something of an ancient theme. This is the Antikythera mechanism. Created by the ancient Greeks as early as 205 BC, this mechanism is not only the oldest example of an analog computer, but is also a curiously accurate hand-powered model of the solar system that can be used to predict astronomical positions, eclipses decades in advance, and can even model the irregular orbit of the moon with near-pinpoint accuracy. But what's so suspicious about the Antikythera mechanism is the fact that no machine of an even remotely similar complexity appeared again in history until 1500 years later. It wasn't until the advent of astronomical clocks in the 14th century that any kind of technology came close to matching the mechanism. So, was every other culture in the world just unintelligent? Or did the ancient Greeks receive a helping hand? The Society of the Ancients believe the latter. There are some themes starting to form here. Firstly, the Antikythera mechanism shares a very similar shape to Stonehenge. it's a round shape with counterpoints. And secondly, both are elements of technology that are designed to allow more primitive civilizations to interact with space and the solar system. It's almost as if the ancients who aided in their construction were guiding them towards something. But there's no greater example of that than crop circles. Crop circles have been a modern-day mystery for decades, centuries even, and have long been believed to be extraterrestrials attempting to make contact with us. But when you look at their shape, rounded shapes with counterpoints, the existence of crop circles starts to make a whole lot more sense. But that isn't the final example of this symbol popping up throughout history. Recently, a member of the society was travelling through Tanzania and discovered this ancient painting on a rock. Look familiar? According to their safari tour guide, this painting had not yet been dated, but it makes sense that more and more evidence of the ancients is rearing up from Eastern Africa, given that if our evolutionary brethren were going to meet up with these ancients, East Africa is the most likely place for that to happen. Now, the discovery of this symbol seemed to be something of a watershed moment for the Society of the Ancients, because shortly after, it became their logo, preceding their most aggressive push yet. In June 2007, Society members took to the streets in major cities across the Western world, armed with shirts, placards, and flyers, all donning the sigil found in Tanzania. SOTA organised protests in New York, London, Vancouver, Chicago, San Francisco, and Boston to raise awareness for our true nature as a species, to open the public's eyes to the reality-breaking knowledge that governments were hiding from us. Beyond the evidence that we already covered, members tried to make the public understand that ancient creations that we've long questioned, such as the pyramids, Aztec structures, Mayan calendars, and stuff like that, were not created through acts of extreme luck or isolated intelligence, but rather through the influence of our forerunner race, who visited us a number of times throughout history to guide our advancement and evolution. And, very suspiciously, these protests were the last time the Society of the Ancients were ever seen or heard from. Their website still hasn't been updated once since 2007, and there have been no more protests or public appearances whatsoever from any members. It's almost as if, just like Jonas Follman, they just disappeared, leaving behind their scattered findings for the few such as us to try and interpret. The reality is, the Society just flew too close to the sun. There's a lot of information out there that the powers that be want to keep for themselves, but the ancients are likely the magnum opus. So, let's do some explaining. Arguably the most important piece of evidence that SOTA discovered was the sigil imprint on the rock in Tanzania. Not only did that imprint become their logo, but it cemented their theory that so many anomalies throughout human history share the same rounded shape with counterpoints. It was their smoking gun that confirmed that technically advanced aliens had interfered with humans throughout history. And you know what? They were right. But what actually was that symbol, their logo? Well, to answer that, we have to travel back some 100,000 years to the story of N'Challa, an ancient human living in prehistoric Tanzania. N'Challa was an elder among his tribe, respected for his wisdom and courage. Every morning, he rises with the sun and goes to the same spot to watch. To watch the wind as it sweeps through the tall grass, to watch the herds of animals make their way across the plains, to watch the predators as they stalk the herds, and to watch the gods as they build their machines. N'Challa does not know why the gods are here, or what they're building deep in the earth. He does not know why they disturb the mother, but still, he watches. As day gives way to night, N'Challa retires to his dwelling to ponder the day's events. He cannot begin to understand the will of these new gods, but he can at least tell the story, and so, with steady hand, he paints. He's been painting for months, etching onto his walls the strange symbols that he sees day in, day out, repeating over and over again. Perhaps one day the gods will reveal themselves to him. Until then, he will continue to watch and to wait. So, the Society of the Ancients were barking up the right tree all along. The symbol on the rock that they took as their logo was in fact a symbol of the Ancients, one that N'Challa learned from the Strato Sentinels sent to Earth during the final days of the Foreigner Flood War to build the portal to the Ark at what would later become Voi. The symbol itself actually belongs to a Foreigner AI, Adjutant Reflex, who was one of the main characters in the Iris ARG that the Society were created for. Adjutant Reflex assisted in preparing the Halo array for its firing, but was eventually overpowered by Mendicant Bias, who used it to get into the Ark's terminal networks. And so, with all of that in mind, the Society of the Ancients research reveals something quite fascinating. I mean, it's staring us in the face, but their conspiracy theories about ancient anomalies being caused by foreign extraterrestrials is more than likely true. Given what we know about Halo's lore, I'd say that it's almost guaranteed that historical anomalies of intelligence, technology, societal advancement and the like were due to foreigner intervention, which is an absolutely insane thought. You know, it makes you wonder if a similar thing happened in real life for us, and we just don't know about it yet. Fiction blending into reality is one of my favourite kinds of storytelling. I mean, it's the main reason that I fell in love with the classic zombie stories so much all those years ago in World at War and Black Ops 1. But I gotta say, I love it even more when Halo does it. I just wish that Halo would do it more often. I was talking to a friend about this kind of storytelling the other day, Mr. Rythes. If you don't know him, go and drop him a follow on Twitter. The guy is an incredible artist, and I actually use a lot of his art in my videos, so go and drop him a follow. But we were talking about this. We have very similar taste when it comes to kind of storytelling and narrative, and he summarized why I love this kind of storytelling so well. So, to paraphrase, he said, "It makes me believe that we're living in some kind of prophecy, like the events of Halo are actually real. Despite our everyday lives, there are things beyond the curtains that we cannot see. Awful things. They have been around long before us, and will continue to be long after we're gone." The idea of history repeating itself and everything completing a loop where our duty is to break the cycle. And you know, I just think that's a really, really cool way of summarizing it. But that is the story of the Society of the Ancients, the real modern day Halo cult that took to the streets of the Western world to preach about the existence of the foreigners creating things like Stonehenge and meddling with our history. I'm not going to waffle any more than I already have done in this video, but all I'm going to say is I absolutely adore this kind of storytelling, and we need more of it, we really do. So with that said, I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. I went for a little bit of a different style with it. It was quite stylized, very creepypasta-esque, so if you enjoyed that, I want to make more content like this, so if you enjoyed that, show your support down below. I'd really appreciate it, because this kind of stuff, like, when you get in a flow state editing this kind of content, and you kind of feel yourself nailing the vibe, so to speak, it feels really good, and I was really happy with the final product, so yeah, if you guys enjoyed it, show your support down below in the comments. With that said, I'm going to round this one out there. I want to give a huge thank you to all of my amazing patrons for the continued support over there, as per usual, and thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you all in the next one.